All right, go ahead, Mary.
Thank you, Michaela. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to one of those mid-month book club at the center, our Birchfield Penny Art Center book clubs. We're so delighted that you're here with us tonight. We have a really exciting evening planned for you with a wonderful author and a lovely book. I hope many of you have read it already. If not, I know you'll want to run out and purchase it and read it after tonight's presentation. So before we begin though, I'm going to ask Michaela to just explain to you a little bit about how our book club works online tonight. So Michaela.
Yeah, so hi everyone. I know most of you who have attended these before already know how this works, but for anyone who's new, if you have questions for Clarissa, please use the Q&A button at the bottom. I will be checking that, and when you have your question, I will ask it on your behalf. We also have the chat section too to leave comments. And I am recording this evening, so if you don't have time to watch the entire thing, it will be streaming through our website, and I will also have a link that I can share as well if you send an email.
Thank you, Michaela. So I'm first going to introduce, I'm actually only going to introduce Joanne Kaminsky, who many of you know as one of our wonderful newer docents, but not a new docent and certainly not new to the book club. Joanne will introduce the author. So Joanne, if you'd be so kind.
Absolutely. Well, welcome everyone. We have another one of Buffalo's own born and bred novelists. Clarissa Markiewicz went to Cindy Honors and actually went with Mary's daughter-in-law. Is that correct?
Yes, Marcella Wentland.
So we have a bunch of connections here. And I'm amazed that her career officially began when she was in high school here in Buffalo in 1994, when at 15, she won the grand prize in the Scholastic Jackson Brown Write Lyrics Contest, which gained national media attention. It was featured in Rolling Stone and also in US News and World Report. She went on to earn her BA in English from Ohio State University. And she was nominated by faculty there for a very prestigious Joseph Denny Award in English Studies. She's been working in marketing, administrative, and community relations with companies such as Coca-Cola. She created promotions, served as copywriter and editor, and developed the web and print-based publications. She enjoys stints as a singer, which maybe we can egg her on tonight, and an actress appearing at Bowery Poetry Club, and a guest vocalist. This really is interesting on the album Serve with Straw, Diane Tabor and the Sunspots. She even worked as a karaoke host. Haven't we all? But her heart always belonged to creative writing, and her nonfiction short stories and articles have been published in the Buffalo News and Art Times. She continued her postgraduate education in creative writing at Harvard University. I'll tell you, I was very impressed when I read that, and studied under the Pulitzer-winning author Paul Harding. Shortly thereafter, she became a full-time freelance literary editor, working with dozens of authors on more than 200 published titles before penning her first published novel, Christmas in Whimsy. And it says here that you published the online serial sketches from the Cafe Confectura, which I actually want to ask you about after we finish this book. She's a proud member of the National Writers Union and Writers and Books volunteers as chair of the marketing committee for the Rochester Women's Network, where she currently lives, and serves on the Pegasus Early Music Board of Directors. She writes about her obsession with entertaining books, movies, and TVs in her blog, Pollyanna's Library. And I may be able to see that Pollyanna's Library now that I read Christmas in Whimsy. So we're going to start today, and that's very impressive for a very young girl. And we're going to start today with a reading, I think Clarissa said, and then we have a bunch of questions for you afterwards. So I'll turn it over to you, Clarissa.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all so very much. Thank you to Birchfield Penny. Thank you, Mary, Joanne, and Michaela, for having me. This is quite an honor. And thank you all out there for joining us tonight. And Joanne, thank you for calling me young. That's, that's very nice too. Yeah, I just, you know, I do want to say for the sketches from Cafe Confectura, I actually have just relaunched that. So that's starting. We'll talk more about that after. Pollyanna's Library is the same. I've moved that blog over. So those are just starting again. You can see more about that on my Facebook page. So stay tuned for more on that. But I am going to start tonight reading from the first chapter of Christmas in Whimsy. And you're probably getting everything backwards with Zoom, but hopefully you can make out the title there. So I'll read from part of the first chapter, starting at the beginning. Lexie Moore's interview with Santa had gone off the rails. If there was one reality she'd learned in her 9 years since graduating J school, it was that news stories were like kids. They could have a mind of their own. She sat across from the jolliest elf in front of Santa's pavilion on the second floor of the Orange Clove Marketplace, the official mall of Whimsy, New York, as all the directories said. Amid the jeans and yoga pants dressing most people's Saturday morning, Lexie wore her own comfy weekend attire of wide-legged trousers, a blouse and vest, and a blazer. The blazer, though, currently hung on the back of her chair, along with her coat and scarf. It had gotten pretty warm in here for Lexie. Sunshine gleamed through the mall's glass roof, and what she'd said to her boyfriend at breakfast had her sweating. Yes, she'd assured him for what was, by her count, the 100th time, I am looking forward to tonight. Since then, she'd tried to keep her mind on more pleasant, relaxing topics, like her job. It seemed as though every child in Whimsy was out this morning. An interview with Santa? What kid in her right mind was going to miss that, especially with Christmas only 3 weeks out? Already, the kids had been springing up like popcorn from their spots on a huge vinyl mat in front of Santa and Lexie. But then Mrs. Claus had come around with warm chocolate chip cookies. The sugar boost sent the little ones into a frenzy, calling out their own questions. Lexie might have been annoyed by the hijacking of her interview if the hijackers weren't so darned cute. So for a little while now, Lexie had sat back, listening and taking notes and trying to ignore the platter of those warm chocolate chip cookies. They were barely into December, and Lexie's diet, admittedly not the healthiest anyway, had already given her the unwanted gift of extra pounds on her thighs and hips. In between taking notes, her fingers found their way to playing with the ends of her straight, shoulder-length auburn hair. This was apt to happen whenever she was denied something she wanted. Then she jerked her hand down away from her hair, as was apt to happen whenever she caught herself doing it. Finally, Lexie tried to take the interview reins once more. Everyone, she said sweetly but firmly over the hullabaloo, we don't want to keep Santa from his important duties, do we? No, came the somewhat horrified response. Keeping Santa from his duties, dear God. That had to land you on the naughty list, right up there with finger painting with mom's nail polish and sticking bubblegum in your sister's hair. No kid was going to mess with such things this close to Christmas. Well, almost no kid. A freckly redhead about 7 years old jumped up. All the parents stood behind the mat, and this little boy's mom had come over to him 3 times already to calm him down. The mom sent Lexie an apologetic look, but it was Lexie who felt for the mother. This little one had to be a handful, she guessed. At 32, Lexie was no stranger to the biological pangs telling her it was time for motherhood. But one of her many worries about having children was having a child like him. She didn't know what scared her more, a pint-sized whirlwind or that he'd stopped spinning just long enough to look to her, of all people, for guidance. She snuck a glimpse at her boyfriend, Theo, standing off to the side and chatting with his sister. Lexie's heart fluttered, as it always did, when she spotted his downy brown hair, glasses, and muscular build across a crowded room. In the 3 years they'd been together, she had never heard him express doubts about fatherhood or how their lives would change with family. She'd never revealed her doubts to him either. The little red-headed boy fairly wriggled with excitement, standing before the big man in red. With a lisp that could have landed him a record deal singing "All I Want for Christmas Is My Two Front Teeth," he spouted, "Santa, could you tell us the legend of Whimsy?" "Please," his mother urged at him in a whisper. "Please?" the boy asked. The adults in the crowd laughed gently. Lexie was no exception. She went back to scribbling notes on her legal pad. The legend of Whimsy. She had to admit this was turning out better than her interview could have. Her editor at Upstate Magazine was going to love this as the crowning jewel in Lexie's cover story for the upcoming issue. She'd been working toward this for months between other assignments, culling research, talking to scads of townies, simply observing and crafting the longest, most in-depth cover story in the magazine's recent history. This was what their readers craved. Upstate's circulation was heaviest among busy and bustling Manhattanites who thrived in the concrete jungle and yet dreamed of spa retreats, artisan boutiques, hiking trails, and cozy small-town getaways. For the 5 years she'd been working at Upstate, Lexie had wanted to do a holiday profile in her hometown of Whimsy. It was perfect, with its rolling, snow-covered hills an hour outside the city. The outdoor kids' rink, just past the Golden Pedestrian Gallantry Bridge, had skaters day and night. The Orange Clove Marketplace, with the Holiday Hutch, Brûlée Bakery and Cafe, and O.C. Fair, where singing elves bagged the groceries, never ran out of cocoa and pumpkin pie samples. Whimsy was the North Pole on overload this time of year, and it even came with its own legend. Santa gave an ebullient "ho, ho, ho," and tugged on his luxurious and genuine "thank you very much" whiskers. "Well, children, the legend of Whimsy," he said, and then he stopped himself with a curious glance at Lexie. "Actually, I think Miss Moore might want to field this one." He winked at her. "You do so love the tale." Lexie froze. She muttered to Santa, "How did you know that?" Santa's eyes just twinkled. Odds were he was either guessing or this was someone Lexie knew and just didn't recognize. She'd lived here her whole life, and Santa was probably an old high school teacher or neighbor. Whimsy was small enough that if you were out walking at 4 a.m. on the west side, you could smell the bread baking at Harvest Loaf on the east side. But Christmas and the legend of Whimsy weren't about logic and odds. They were too magical for that. And that's exactly what Lexie liked most about them both. "Legend has it," Lexie said to the redhead, "that our little town of Whimsy has a magic all its own that comes with holiday snow." "What's holiday snow?" the redhead interrupted. "Oh, it's the best kind," said Lexie. "There are 2 types of snow. There's the kind that comes in January or February, sometimes March or April, and it seems a little sad. It's cold and wet and sort of gray. But then there's holiday snow. Holiday snow is fluffy and it's fun and it sparkles like glitter." Santa chimed in. "My reindeer and elves find it's the best variety of snow for making angels, and it has a sweet yet robust flavor for catching on your tongue." The adults chuckled and the kids cheered. "But there's another special thing about holiday snow," said Lexie. "Holiday snow brings the spirit of Whimsy, a daughter of Mother Nature. Some say she's an angel. Some say she's energy all around us, watching over us. But one thing everyone agrees on is she wears a magic watch that begins to run when the first flakes of holiday snow fly. This watch tells her when it's time for her to visit us again, from approximately a quarter to winter to half past New Year's. The red-headed boy called, "How can Whimsy wear a watch?" He held his wrist in the air. "Energy can't wear a watch. You need a wrist to wear a watch." The boy's mother groaned. Lexie flicked her evergreen eyes to Santa, and sure enough, Santa stepped up. He leaned forward toward the child. "It's magic, my boy," he said through a conspiratorial smile. "Whimsy is all magic. You know that feeling of goodwill that fills your heart at Christmas time? It makes older folks feel like children again and fills us all with wonder. That's Whimsy. Sometimes she even helps Santa make wishes come true." The children oohed and gasped. Then Santa laid a finger aside of his nose and winked at the boy. "Wishes like a Quicksilver Raptor racer car with remote control, Lucas." The boy's jaw dropped. His eyes popped. In hushed astonishment, he uttered, "That's me. I'm Lucas." A warm feeling filled Lexie's chest. Lucas scrambled to his feet. "Mom," he called, whipping around to face her, "we gotta go. I gotta clean my room." He ran to his mother and tugged on her hand. "Well, I'm not going to argue with that," said his mom. "Thanks, Santa," yelled Lucas as he hauled his mom off. "Thanks, legend lady." "Yes," the mom called over her shoulder. "Thank you both." Lexie caught Theo's eye. Even amid such a crowd, they shared an intimate moment and a smile, both charmed.
Is Clarissa frozen?
Yeah,
It seems like it.
Let's give her a second or two to pop back on.
I was,
By the scene. Oh, hello, are you back? Or
back.
okay, sorry
You're
about
back.
that. I'm back. I'm not sure where you lost me. Should I just?
Theo, she
I'll just
just
keep going.
caught Theo's eye and the intimate
Okay.
relationship.
Great, thanks. The magic, the near completion of Lexie's best article to date, the wings Theo's loving gaze set upon her heart. All of it began to put Lexie's mind at ease about tonight. After all, it was just a date. Yes, an extravagant one. Yes, an important one, as Theo had said. He'd reserved.
Got it again.
Well, that's so disappointing. Let's
It
hope
is.
that
I'm sure it's
I
this
could be the weather.
The weather, yeah.
where I am. It's fiercely windy outside.
Them a table at rendezvous. Oh, okay. I think I'm back again.
I think
You
you
are
should
back
skip.
again.
I think you should skip that part because it keeps freezing on the same.
I know it is. Okay. So basically, Theo has set up a very important date for tonight, and it's making Lexie nervous. That's
Oh,
about
yes.
what the. Theo leaned over and murmured to his sister. He was still smiling. His sister's smile, however, faded with her response. And suddenly Lexie knew what they were saying. She knew as her heart came crashing back down, its wings clipped. She knew as the magic around her faded. As she heaved a petrified sigh, she knew Theo was going to propose tonight. What a ridiculous thing to be scared of, Lexie told herself. Wasn't this her dream? Wasn't it everyone's? To fall in love with your best friend and share an incredible fairy tale night that ended with a glimmering ring.
We're so sorry she's frozen. I'm
Yeah.
not quite sure what to do. as you could tell, it's a delightful story, and she is a wonderful author and a delightful human being. We had the chance to meet with her during the last second Friday when she came in to sign books.
Oh, I just saw her drop out. Hopefully she'll reconnect in a minute.
And get a little stronger connection. This will give me a chance to talk a little bit about the fact that we will not be meeting next month in January. Our friend Stephen Benko is going to be taking a little hiatus. He'll be returning to us on July 7th. So we have a month off, and then we'll meet again in February. Are you back?
I am. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure.
I'm not-
Oh, no. Oh, no.
My guess it's the weather.
Oh, yeah.
Sure why the connection's not yeah, and you guys are starting to freeze up again on my end, so I'm not sure how. Maybe I should stop the reading here and we can go to I think that might be best. Okay.
Yes, let's do that.
Well, suffice it to say, Lexie runs into some issues at the end of this chapter with this whole article and this special evening that Theo is planning. So she's a little bit in hot water by the end of this chapter.
Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed what you heard.
We did. Lexie seemed to be able to put herself in hot water consistently.
Yes.
But when you read it, it brought me back to the beginning of the book again on how you are able how well defined you zero in on the emotions of people and the scene, the second floor area where Santa Claus is, the people around her, what you see. I mean, a lot of us can walk into a room and experience those same things, the wafting of the chocolate chip cookies and how you want to take one of those. All of that is just so well written because it gives you everything you need to know on what's happening. You're drawn immediately into the situation and you know exactly where you are. So I think your descriptive writing is excellent. Is that how you started out? Is that how you, seeing as this is your first novel, is it something that you, as it is throughout the whole book, is this something that a way you want to continue to write?
Definitely. And thank you so much for speaking so kindly about me and the writing. Yeah, I think that the more immersed you can be in a scene, whether it's, I mean, especially I think in a book, because obviously with a movie, you've got the visual, you're there, you've got that, you've got the audio, you have the cues that you're getting from actors who are portraying these words. So it's extremely important in book form to be able to immerse your reader in that scene, in whatever scene you want them to see, and also bring their attention to the different elements for whatever reason. Usually it's for symbolism or metaphor, to specific elements that you want them to not just see, but hear, smell, taste, feel, using those senses to play on and play up the emotion that you want to bring to the scene. That's something that I've always really enjoyed, that, creating worlds, creating imagery with the characters that I write. And it's something that I have definitely studied in other authors' writing to see, okay, what's a good way to do this? What's a really great way to bring someone in and also give the information about the character, the scene, the story that I want to be giving. I think that's the most fun, is when you yourself, the author, can lose yourself in the world that you're creating. I think that's a really good sign.
I think because you described each individual persona so well, each character, as you moved to the next character and the next character, and then went back again, I don't know what that's called in the literary world, but you knew, like in the first paragraph or the first sentence, who you were with again, because you had done such a good job of describing their persona in the first couple chapters that when you skipped from person to person, it was very easy to pick them up. I didn't have to, in many books I go back and I said, now who was that person and what did they do? Because your
Yeah.
descriptive quality was so good.
Thank
I
you.
also, and it wasn't lost, I don't think, on anybody who lives in Western New York, holiday snow.
Yes.
That snow is truly magical when you
Yeah.
see it at nighttime or you see it with the sun glistening on it, you know exactly what you're talking about. And I think if you came from another part of the country, you may not, but it just is a very special, lightweight, listless snow that comes down. So I'm imagining this whole little town covered like that.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm glad I did my job.
Because we have that,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely, and I'm sure that it's funny because one of the characters, Margot, one of the main characters, I call her a serial nostalgic.
yeah.
And she nostalgist, I think is what word I use. But she romanticizes the past, and that's totally something that I do all the time. But that's something I remember from my childhood, having grown up in Western New York, is exactly what you're talking about. Before New Year's, it's just this beautiful, blanket of glistening snow. And then usually after it starts to get that gray and that sort of like, okay, when is this going to be done now? Sort of sloppy a little bit. But yeah, certainly at the holidays, there is that magic that we feel, I think.
Right. And you alluded to a little bit towards this mysterious energy that
Yes.
now pops up throughout the book. And I felt I knew when it was coming, and I felt when you described the character within the book who is butting up against this energy, whether it be a swirl of the wind or whether it be a face in a crowd or someone she bumps into. I think you can follow who that is.
Good.
And I think of whimsy maybe in our area here, and I'm from we call it the South Towns. It
Sure.
would be a place like East Aurora, a place where everybody's out in the street and mingling during the holidays, and there's little places you can run into.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I can absolutely see that. Yeah.
Yeah. There are so many personalities in here, the characters and their friends. And I think we have encountered so many of these people in our own personal lives. And as a literary writer of this, are these personas taken from people you've met along your way in your travels, the jittery, the uptight, the nostalgia, the headstrong person?
Sure, absolutely. I think that it's always dangerous being a friend of a writer, because you never know when something's going to show up somewhere. And I have very patient, lovely, wonderful friends. But no, I never base anybody specifically on anyone, but they are definitely, as a writer, you have to be observant. And that's something I've always been, is very observant of people and questioning, why is this person acting in such a way? And then as a writer, you explore that. What are the possibilities? Why are they maybe doing this? Why are they headstrong? Why are they stubborn? But overall, I mean, yes, you're taking from different people you've met or seen through your life. But for me also, it's about self-examination, and it's about, turning inward a little bit and saying, okay, what are these tendencies in myself, or oh, I noticed I did this. Why did I do this? And the more you can kind of question yourself and be more self-aware, that questioning is something that I think adds to the characters, and also that feeling that you're mentioning of familiarity. Because really, I mean, don't we all kind of have these facets in us to one degree or another? And if you take the time to really examine these things and again, question them, have compassion for them, and see how they play out, then, that's going to that's going to create a character who's relatable, who's three-dimensional, somebody that you're going to say, I know this person, or I've felt this before. And I think that's one of the keys to good storytelling, because if you can't relate to the story that you're reading, for me anyway, it leaves me cold then. You know, there needs to be something, even if it's totally out there story, that's a totally different person. There's got to be some tie there. And that's where I think you can find those ties.
Yeah, you almost want to put yourself as the, you know, the narrator, or as Lexie, even though Lexie's the one with the biggest problems, I think. You want to get in there and say, you can see all these faults and personalities in everyone else, but you obviously can't see them in yourself.
Right.
And as somebody reading or observing this, you, as a psychiatrist, you want to sit down each one of those people and put them on the couch and tell them exactly what's wrong and exactly why they're doing it. You know, they have, there were so many relationships. Margot's anxiety, you know, goes into high gear, you know, when her intentions that she doesn't express are diverted to another woman, you know, Jean Baker, I think was her name. And then Robin's feelings for Scott are just all over the place. It's like she couldn't read. She's involved in this business where she wants to read the needs of everyone, yet she can't read the needs of this most important character.
Mm-hmm.
And then Lexie and Theo, boy, that's a trip all the way through the book. And I like the little injection there of Charles Dickens. Christmas past, Christmas present, Christmas future.
Yes.
That one caught me by surprise, but it made sense. So you were able to weave each one of these into, and they all had different problems, but their problems were pretty much the same when you boiled it down. You know, uncomfortable situations that just required, I think, as you wrote in there somewhere, open and honest communication.
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely one of the main themes running through it, is that we need honest communication, open communication, but also that we can't do it all on our own. You know, we have a lot of, I think, you know, figures in well, like a stereotypical character in pop culture, especially, is kind of the woman who can do it all, you know. And I don't know anybody who can do it all. I've never met anyone who can do it all. I certainly can't do it all. And we all need help at different points. And to kind of take those, you know, we've always sort of, I think, seen the beauty standard on television and in entertainment and things like that, the physical beauty standard. And it's usually an impossible standard that takes many people with makeup and costumes and, you know, dietitians and things to create. It's a similar thing with this idea of, you know, the woman who can do it all. And the more that idea is sort of pushed, I think, on every other normal woman out there, or man, who's just kind of trying to make it in life, trying to, you know, live their life and be the best family person they can, whatever that means for them. You know, it's a tough ideal to live up to. So that's another huge theme going on in the story with all three of the women, is this idea of, you know, kind of having to take on everything yourself. Well, you can't, and that's okay. You know, you have friends and family for a reason. We all do. Hopefully we all do.
You know, it's interesting because when you just said about the ideal of beauty, when I honestly can't, and I don't know if I'm the only one who felt this way, I would never put a visual face to any of your characters other than their age, because their anxiety or angst or persona, I felt, was stronger than what I visually thought they might look like.
Wow, that's really interesting. I take that as a compliment, I think, because thank you. I mean, if we can see past this is going to sound like maybe a little Pollyanna-ish, but if we can sort of see past the exterior sometimes, that's,
Yeah.
that can be a good thing. So,
Yeah, because there were so many, you mentioned that relationships can travel so far off course until it's hard to mend. And and the exchange of words that happen to send it off course, either from mother to son, husband to wife, lover to lover, friend to friend, friend to acquaintances that you just meet, that can tend to put people off, but that is a foundation of relationships that we all have. Sometimes we just gloss over what the problem is, and then that problem just gets kicked down the road.
yes, absolutely. I think one of my favorite journeys in the book is actually Scott's, who is, Robin's potential beau.
Potential beau, yeah.
Yeah, client and then potential beau. And because he's doing exactly what you're talking about, this idea of kicking this problem down the road with his father, his relationship with his father. That's what he's done his whole life. And when the book starts, he's basically just looking for anything that will be a little bit better Christmas present than what he's given his father in the past, which has been kind of, your standard, trinket that you can buy at Macy's or something, like a coin counter or something like that. It's not a very personal gift. And, the relationship that they have, or lack thereof, has to be mended before Scott can really have a relationship and be the man that, Robin needs him to be in order to have a relationship with him. So that's kind of one of those stories that, and that's the other thing is, the protagonists in the story are definitely the women, Lexie, Robin, and Margot, but their counterparts, the men, they have to go through their own journeys, each one of them, in order to become the partner that, whether it's romantic or friendship, that is going to work for these women as they go through their journey. So, which I think is also true to life, because you can't just have one person in a relationship who is stationary at all times and the other person who is changing. You must grow together in order to grow together.
It's true. It's true. And I didn't want to jump to the end so quickly, but it ties into what we were saying. I think it's the very end where Margot, who's your nostalgia buff,
Yes.
She goes, talking about nostalgia, she goes, seriously, this is a thing. We long for the past, but when we realize one day this moment is going to be in the past and we're going to long for it too, so why not enjoy it to the fullest while we're living it, rather than spending this time longing for a past that is gone. You never think of this moment as your living moment as something that will become a memory in the future. And I think one of the things that brought that home for so many people is that COVID is a situation that will be remembered for eons, like the 1912 plague or whatever it was.
Right.
But we're living in it and we don't like it and we're antagonized by it and we want to get through it. But a lot of us have stopped really living because of it. And, some of this and what this book brought about was like, hey, guess what? There are relationships out there. Maybe we should strive to get back in, and join the world again.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because the book was published a month before things went crazy. It was like December of 2019. So, then everything went nuts. But absolutely. And that's something that I've learned about my own life is, there are times I definitely feel nostalgia for the past. Quite a lot, actually. But there is that idea of, someday this is going to be the past. Do I want to look back in 15 years and be, missing it and not be able to do anything about it 15 years in the future? Or do I want to really enjoy it right now rather than spend it looking back toward a past that I can't do anything about now anyway? And I think you're right. I think that with COVID, that has been something that's really brought that home, because you're absolutely right. It's so difficult to, it's especially the first year, I think it was very difficult to get back out and do just normal things. Being with friends, going on a date, going to the movies, bringing your children anywhere, and having family memories. And while that's so difficult, it really did drive it home that this is important. And this is all we have, really, is this moment. We're never guaranteed a tomorrow. And I know that that's cliche. Everybody says that, but it's so true. And you're absolutely right that has really made it even more clear, I think, having lived through this.
Yeah, it's a very uplifting tale that enabled us, or me, just to break away from all the
Great.
stress, just for a
Great.
little while. So it was a great book for this time period, and I think you were able to do that. And I think when we were talking individually beforehand, some people live for those Hallmark movies, the tales at this time of the year, to make them say, hey, there are happy endings in this world. And that's really what your book brought about. And I thank you for it.
Well, thank you so much. And that's what it was intended to do. I wanted to write a story that was it was heartwarming, it was uplifting, and yet not not two-dimensional in any way, something with real characters who were going through real struggles. But certainly something that kind of left you at the end just feeling good, especially at the holidays, because you want to feel good at the holidays,
Is this what your sketches from the cafe, is this a book, or is this kind of like a series of?
So it's an online serial, and as I said at the start,
I don't know what that means. I don't know what that means.
Okay, so basically, it's like a blog, but it's fiction, and it's an ongoing story. And even though each post is self-contained, it's got its own kind of story going on. There is this bigger story happening that each of the posts are kind of feeding into. It's like watching a series on TV, basically.
Oh, okay.
And like I said, I've recently relaunched it. So the first post is up now on medium.com. So I think if you just type in sketches from the Cafe Confectura, it should come up, or if you type in my name, you can get to it that way. And that will be released, post will be released every month. So the next one will be up at the end of this month. And then Paul, to answer your question, no, it's a little bit, I think a little bit darker. It's not dark by any means, but it's not quite as light as Christmas and Whimsy. The idea behind it is there's this, again, a small town. I love small towns, but this one is in Connecticut, and it has been ravaged by a freak earthquake, a 7.2 earthquake in Connecticut, which is kind of unheard of. And it has left this little town of Applewood in ruins. But there's other stuff going on too, that it seems to be related to the quake, but it's like people are getting sick, buildings are kind of rotting away. And there's this one cafe called the Cafe Confectura that is one of the very few structures that has sort of been immune to all of this that's been going on. And so, you know, the story follows a blogger who has gone to this small town to kind of investigate a little bit and get to know these people, and why is this cafe still standing, and what's going on here. So that's where it starts. That's the idea behind it.
And you have plans to write another novel, or are you working on anything now?
I'm working on my second novel, which is a mystery, actually, and sort of in the same vein as Whimsy was a, you know, kind of in the vein of a Hallmark feel. This is again sort of maybe in a Hallmarky type of a feel, but maybe a little bit more mystical than that is. It's got magic the same way that Whimsy has this sort of mystical, I guess not magic, but this sort of mystical energy going on in it. So I'm working on that, and you know, that I'm hoping to release that next year. So that's the plan for that one. And there is going to be a sequel to Christmas in Whimsy, just not right away,
Right.
but soon.
Sounds like somebody should take it and make a fun series out of it. Could be Friends. Could be.
Thank you. Thanks. Could be, yeah.
Michaela, do we have any questions for Clarissa?
So I don't see any questions in our Q&A yet, but I did link the blog for Pollyanna's Library in the chat. So if anyone wants to check that out, it's in there. And if you have questions, just please use that Q&A section.
Yeah, I tried not to give away too much of everybody and the plot of the story, just in case a couple of people haven't read it. But
Yes,
it is a nice read, and it does pull you in. And we had mentioned before, the front cover is so beautiful. And you had told us that was a friend of yours, or?
Yes. So she's actually a local artist in Rochester, and she's a dear friend of the family, Mary Ann Sawyer Wade. Our families have been friends forever, since I can remember. And you know, she and my mom were best friends years ago, and they've been, you know, it's kept the friendship alive and all through the years, and are very dear friends today as well. And I was, you know, when I was sort of planning the release of the book, I knew I wanted to ask her if she would be so kind as to create a cover for me. And she did, and it's remarkable. And, you know, she even let me have a little input on it, which was really nice too. But it's her work. It's beautiful. I love it so much. So
And
I'm
I
very
think
grateful to her.
this little swirl right here must be the Whimsy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The Spirit of Whimsy. That's it. Yep.
Well, it was great, and I encourage any of you who have not read it to pick it up, because it's a nice little escape from reality.
Yes.
And
And
hopefully
nice,
we'll have that
a nice
beautiful
little
snow.
stocking stuffer too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hopefully
Yes.
we'll have that beautiful snow for Christmas.
Yes, but not too much. Just, you know, just enough.
Just that dusting. Clarissa, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Joanne, you did a
Thank
remarkable
you.
job. Thank
Yes.
you.
Great fun.
Thank
I
you.
truly recommend the book. I hope you all have a chance to read it. Thank you. It was just a great evening. Before we go, just to remind you, we will meet on February 3rd. Clarissa, you're just a wonderful, maybe 80th author we've had with us. So
Wow,
thank you so much.
Oh,
And it
wonderful.
was Charles Wright was the name of the author I was trying to think of, whose book was made into a movie. And I feel very confident yours will be as well. But on February 3rd, we're going to be reading a book by Molly Peacock, The Paper Garden. An artist begins her life's work at 72. And for those of you who were with us prior to our inviting the author, we have read that book before. However, this time, Molly Peacock will be joining us. So it's going to be a really wonderful night. We're very lucky. that she has agreed to do that. And I'm just going to share a little secret. When we do read that book, I will no longer be 72. I will have graduated to 73.
Oh,
So
no.
yeah, just a little bit past my prime, but nonetheless. Clarissa, thank you so much. It's been
Yes.
absolutely delightful. Joanne, thank you again.
Thank you. Yep.
Michaela,
Thank
is
you.
there a
Thank you
question?
so much.
I see no questions in our Q&A.
Okay.
So.
And thank you, Michaela, as always, for keeping us on track and making it happen. So have a great night, everyone. I look forward to seeing you all again.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much. Bye.
Bye-bye.